Hi there, Andrei Maximov is here. Welcome back to our quick introduction to Python 3 for AWS Automation Engineers course. This course is completely free and available for you at handson.cloud website. In this course, we are covering Python basics and of course various different aspects of using boto3 library to automate your daily AWS routine operations. In our previous video, we showed you how to install boto3 library in virtual environment in Cloud9 IDE. And in this video, we will point your attention how to use boto3 library to assume an IAM roles. You have to assume an IAM role every single time you are doing cross-account AWS operations. For example, you have an S3 bucket in your current AWS account, and now you have to develop a Python automation which takes the files from the S3 bucket, does a transformation of these S3 files, and then stores the results of this transformation to another AWS account, to another S3 bucket. So to accomplish this task, first of all, you have to write your Python code, and to be able to launch this code or execute this code, you have to have an IAM role in the destination AWS account. This role has to have permissions for your current user or role within your current account, which allows your role to assume the IAM role from the destination AWS account, and your current role which you are using has to have permissions to execute STS assume role API call. So basically that's it. Now the code block which you are interested in is located in Introduction to boto3 library article on our website, and within this article we have to find a section which is called How to Assume IAM Role using boto3. So this is a complete example of how to assume role using boto3. We will dive deep into the details in a couple of minutes. And as for now, let's jump to the Cloud9 IDE and make some changes there required to give a Cloud9 IDE permissions to assume roles first. Okay, I just launched my Cloud9 IDE environment, and the first thing I have to mention here is that by default Cloud9 IDE environment doesn't have enough permissions and privileges for us to operate efficiently throughout this course. So let's check out which permissions does Cloud9 IDE environment give you by default. So to do that, we need to go to EC2 instances list in your AWS account in EC2 service and find the actual EC2 instance which is backing up your Cloud9 IDE environment. So you can easily find it by searching for the instance which name starts from AWS Cloud9, then it followed by the actual environment name. In my specific case, it's hands-on cloud boto3. So now let's check out the actual IAM role assigned to the instance, and this role name is Cloud9 instance. So to check out permissions for this role, we need to go to the IAM management console and find this role. I already did it in my account. So I'm clicking on the role itself, and as you can see, there are several AWS managed policies attached to this role, which are giving you EC2 full admin, code commit full admin, IAM full admin, CloudWatch full admin, and ECS full admin permissions. Again, those permissions not going to be enough to operate efficiently. So let's create a brand new role and assign it to the EC2 instance. To do that, let's go back to the roles, hit create role button, choose AWS service role. Use case gonna be an EC2 instance. Then we will hit next. In the policies list, we will type admin and choose administrator access. That will give our role full admin permissions in our AWS account. Now, as a role name, let's type something Cloud9 EC2 admin to be able to find this role pretty quickly. And all we need to do here is to hit create role button. Now, As soon as the role being created, we need to go back to the modify IAM role for our EC2 instance, hit refresh button, and choose our just created role from the list, and hit save. Now, the last step which we need to do is to go to the Cloud9 IDE back and go to the Cloud9 IDE settings or preferences. Now, in the list of preferences, we need to go to AWS settings and turn off this AWS manage temporary credentials. This step will allow Cloud9 IDE to use an EC2 instance profile role which we just assigned to the EC2 instance. So let's check it out. Let's type AWS STS get caller identity, and as we can see, our Cloud9 IDE EC2 instance is using our Cloud9 EC2 admin role, which has admin permissions in our AWS account. Now we are ready to start playing with our boto3 assume role script. Okay, now let's create a couple of roles which we will be using from our script to interact with S3 and EC2 services, for example. To do that, let's copy this Cloud9 EC2 admin role name first and go to the IAM management console. Here, we will search for Cloud9 EC2 admin role and copy this ARN of the role over here. Next, let's go back to the roles and hit create role button. Let's create the role for our EC2 instance first. Here we are choosing EC2 service, EC2, then hit next. Here we are looking for EC2 permissions for our role. Let's hit EC2 full admin permissions, hit next. As the role name, let's type something like EC2 demo role and hit create role button. Now let's do the same thing for S3 role. Hit create role button once more again, EC2 service, EC2, hit next. Here in the list of permissions, we are typing S3, choosing Amazon S3 full access permission, hit next. As the role name, we will be using S3 demo role and hit create role button again. Now let's find out our created roles. As you can see, we have a couple of roles here. Now, for every single role, we need to go to the role itself, click on the trusted relationships, and edit them. Instead of service principal, we need to use AWS principal and paste our role ARN, our EC2 role ARN here, and hit update policy. We need to do the same thing for the S3 demo role as well. Hit trust relationships, edit trust policy. Instead of service, we are using AWS principal, pasting the role ARN here, and hitting update policy. Now, at this moment of time, we created a couple of roles in our current AWS account, which we will be assuming from our boto3 automation script to illustrate our examples over here. In our Cloud9 IDE environment, let's create a folder for our specific example. Let's create new folder and name it assume role. Within this folder, let's create a Python script which we will name the same assume role py, and open this file for editing. Now we can copy paste our example from our blog post article. You will find the link in the comment section under this video. So I'm pasting the source code example, and all I need to change here is the actual account ID and the role name. So the account ID is the same, which I'm using for purposes of recording this video, and the role name, as you remember, was EC2 and then demo role. So now, as soon as we will execute the script, that will do the following thing. First of all, we are creating a global variable with boto3 session. This session allows us to interact with the services using a specific set of credentials. Now, for this specific session, we will use an STS client, and this STS client will make an API call to STS service. The API call name is assume role, and that's how the actual method is named here. This method accepts a couple of parameters. First, the actual role ARN, which we are constructing as AWS ARN, like ARN, AWS IAM. Then we are using f-string interpolation syntax to insert in AWS account ID from this variable here, then role and the actual role name. And the role name gonna be taken from this specific variable. Now, this assume role API call will return a JSON object, dictionary, which we will use to construct a session of assumed role for the assumed role permissions. Basically, this dictionary will contain a nested object credentials, and within this object we will get access key, ID secret key, and session token. And finally, we will use this assume role session to create a resource which will interact with AWS EC2 service API for the region, let it be US East 1, and this resource will allow us to get to the instances object, which has an all method, which will basically provide us a list of all EC2 instances in this specific region from AWS EC2 instance. And then we will use a simple for loop to iterate through the list of instances and print the actual instance IDs. So now, to execute this script, let's save the file and activate the virtual environment which we installed in our previous video. So basically, to do that, just as a quick reminder, we need to type source vn bin activate. That will allow us to use a virtual environment where the boto library is already installed. And now we can simply type Python and then assume role py to get the actual instance ID, which gonna be our launched EC2 instance for Cloud9 IDE. So that is basically how you are assuming role from one single account. And in the next section of the video, I will show you how to modify this source code to basically make it a little bit more useful. And at the end of the next section, we will be able to use a function which we will introduce to assume role to interact with the S3 service and EC2 service using separate credential sets. Stay tuned. Okay, let's modify our script very quick to allow us to assume several different roles from one single script. So as you probably figured out that this set of steps need to be executed several times, right? So we can copy paste this lines of code multiple times, or we can simply introduce a function. Let's call it assume role, and then we will use these three steps as the steps of the function. So now within this function, we need to have the actual role name as an argument, and of course we need to have an AWS account to make this function reusable. Account ID. Now we need to replace the variables which are used in the body of this function. So let's replace this role name to the actual variable which our function accepts. And role name, where else we are using it? Nowhere. Okay, now we need to do the same thing with the account ID as well. So let's do it. Account ID here, and basically that's it. Now let's copy this STS client variable and paste it over here in the body of the function, and of course let's replace and we need the session as well. So let's put it here. Now let's call this first variable simply session. That's gonna be a local variable for our function. So we need to put it here. Now STS client, let's rename the variable to STS client and use it over here. Okay, fine. Now let's save the file, and it looks like we don't have any syntax errors. That is good. Now the last variable which we have to replace over here is this assumed role session, right? So let's call it assumed session, and as soon as this is the exact object which we need to get out of our function, we need to return it back. So now we have a repeatable function which uses a session, an STS client for this session, and that STS client assumes the role. Then basically we are getting a brand new session which we are returning back from this assumed role. Which contains the actual temporary credentials to get access to this assumed role. Okay, fine. Now all we need to do here in our script is to start using this different sessions for different roles. Let's change the role name here, like EC2 underscore role name. Then let's introduce an S3 role name variable, which will contain the actual name of the S3 role which we used. Now we have three variables here, like account ID, EC2 role name, and S3 role name, right? And we will use these variables for the purpose of this demo. Now let's assume two different sessions here. So basically, let it be EC2 session, EC2 role session, which will be equal to assume role method, and here the role name will be EC2 role name, and the account ID will be AWS account ID. Another session which we need to have is our S3 role session, right? S3 role session, and here instead of EC2 role name, we will be using S3 role name, and the account ID gonna be the same. Okay, now we can use these two sessions to basically make an API calls to the EC2 service and S3 service specifically. Now, let's replace this assume role session with EC2 role session. This EC2 role will be interacting with EC2 service with US East 1 within US East 1 region and get the list of instances. Now, let's do something similar, but we will use an S3 role session to interact with S3 service. And here, for the resource of the S3, we need to use buckets all method to get a list of all buckets. And here, instead of instances, let's type buckets, take the list of buckets. Here in the for loop, instead of instances, we will be iterating through the list of buckets, and for every single bucket, bucket name, we will print bucket name. Bucket name. So basically, that's it. Now let's try to execute our script once more again. Python assume role py, hit enter. And if we did not make any mistakes, and we did not, as you can see, let me to execute it once more again, we are printing instance ID and a list of S3 buckets. And as you can see, within one single script, we are assuming two different roles, one to interact with EC2 service and another to interact with S3 buckets only, right? So that is how you are assuming various different roles in various different accounts and basically making cross-account AWS API requests to accomplish your AWS cross-account operations. So thank you for your attention. If you found this video useful, please subscribe to the channel and hit thumbs up button to let other users know that this video was helpful for you. So we're gonna be releasing new videos soon. Stay tuned, and thank you for your attention.